All right. So I've never done this before. I'm not really concerned about being a content creator necessarily. Just wanted to get a better perspective from other people, on what's going on out there. I mean, I'm going to give my, honest opinion of just my perspective. I'm just a working class person, and I'm looking at the media. I'm looking at what's going on in the country, and I'm just shaking my head, and I'm like, I can't be the only one. So I guess this is somewhat therapeutic, but also, to get some feedback. Kind of like posting on Facebook, I guess, but on YouTube, and just getting a natural reaction from people. And hopefully, it's not going to be a bunch of people that are just going to defend one side or attack the other side. Because that's not what my agenda is. I'm looking at this from an apolitical, you know, consideration. I just look at it and I shake my head, and I think to myself, what in the fuck? So that's basically where I'm coming from. So anyway, I'm watching these YouTube videos and Facebook posts on New York and what's going on with the prison guards and things of that nature. And I'm like, okay, you've got a governor who's telling her people that you should be happy that I'm not charging you $15 one way to get to work. I'm only charging you 9. It reminds me of when Rumsfeld told soldiers, you don't go to war with what you need, you go to war with what you got. Okay, really? When do we ever put up with that as people? I mean, you wouldn't put up with that in your own household, let alone, in your workplace or any other circumstances. Who could get away with saying something like that other than the powerful and the privileged that don't really give a shit about how it affects people's lives, whether their lives are on the line or not. And in this situation in New York, you have a possible solution. And the governor's not even discussing it because, well, the solution is emptying those jails out. You got these you know prison guards that are telling her it's a Katrina event type situation. Watch this documentary on what would happen to the levees if there was a particular category storm. It was like on the Weather Channel or some Discovery or something. I don't know. It was a long time ago, before Katrina happened, and they showed like a depiction, a rendering of what would take place if there was a particular storm, and how much of the area would be covered in water, and how many people displaced and that would die. And there was a report on what the Army Corps of Engineers had been saying to Bill Clinton and had been saying to Bush about what needs to be done and needs to be rectified now before somebody gets hurt. And then a lot of people got hurt because both administrations basically ignored it. Even though, if these people who were just making a documentary for entertainment purposes see it and they're putting it out there, and for anybody that happens to stumble upon it like me, but you're telling me that the agencies and the president and the people in charge of ensuring our critical infrastructure isn't hurting people, they don't know it. When they were told it, they ignored it. I mean, that's malice. That's negligence. And we see that here in New York, where the people of New York are already paying taxes for their roads. They're paying taxes for everything, all the services that they receive, which is very few, to be honest. And the government takes a whole hell of a lot, but doesn't give a whole hell of a lot back in return. If you look at, say, for instance, the education system, even in not just in New York, but in any place, you look at how much money is dumped into it and how little is actually, like, kind of like the military. The military gets billions and billions of dollars, and an E1's getting paid $1,000 a month. And E1 is first level. It may have gone up since I was in, but $1,000 a month is what your life is worth. But they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever, you know, on the mechanism of the military itself. And the same thing in the education system. They're spending so many billions of dollars, but people aren't getting educated. Teachers are overwhelmed because there aren't enough of them. It's as if they want it to fail. They want it they want a Katrina style event. They want the educational levels to basically break and for it to eventually hurt somebody. And it has. It's hurt a lot of people. And this prison system situation where the workers have been abandoned not only by their own union, but now the judicial system is involved and the governor is attacking them. It's a crime what's happening in New York with these people, and the governor should be ashamed of herself because she uses the limelight as an opportunity to attack Donald Trump when Donald Trump can help with this situation. He can empty those prison systems of anybody that shouldn't even be in the country. And you can't tell me that isn't going to be a significant percent of the population in the jails, which will allow them to process more people and actually deal with the people that are from this country rather than being overburdened by another aspect of the immigration issue. And I'm not getting into that directly now. I will at a later date. I'll probably do a video on that. But, it shouldn't be a political motivated thing. And I wish people wouldn't just focus on Hispanics in the streets in LA burning the American flag and flying the Mexican flag. Because immigration is not about Mexicans. That's only one fraction of the people that are coming into this country. If the Mexican people were the only ones that we were dealing with on the Mexican border, then maybe we could address it legislatively to provide a better and easier pathway that doesn't, turn the whole system into a for-profit mechanism. All the money going into the pockets of lawyers, streamline the system so it is, easier for people that just want to have a better life and want to contribute and make this country great. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. We're not talking about legal immigration. But yes, I can understand how people's feelings can get caught up in this because they think, well, there's a lot of good people out there. And that's true, but unfortunately, you can't fund an agency and then tell that agency not to do its job. Change its job if you don't want them to do it. Congress has the power to do that, but they're not. And in this situation, just like with Kathy Hochul, she's extorting the citizens of the state and acting as if they should be happy. It's like, dude, I was going to take $15 out of your pocket. Now I'm only going to take $9. It's like saying, I'm just going to stab you a little bit. Just a little bit, just in the arm, It doesn't matter. People are still getting screwed, and these poor friggin' prison guards, they're saying, this is Katrina. The levees are going to break. And nobody's listening to us. Our lives are on the line here. It's a safety concern. If this was like chemicals or some shit that were leaking and we went to OSHA, they would shut the place down. But we're talking about dangerous criminals. And we're talking about, maybe inhumane, circumstances inside. I know that a lot of people have been talking about, solitary confinement. And I'm actually going to do a video on solitary confinement as well. I'll get to that, My brain is kind of like a family tree. I start in one place and it just branches out everywhere. It's hard not to. There's so many things to consider and things that are going on, and a lot of things are interconnected, and, I just, feedback. I'm not looking for any answers because I already see what the problem is. I know that it's not really a political thing. It's not Donald Trump. It's not the Democrats. It's not the Republicans. It's individuals who have gotten into power. They may be a part or associated with a political persuasion, but the reality is that we have bad people in government who don't care about the people that they govern. But they managed to get into power because there is a stranglehold by these corporate politicians. The party itself is a corporation. It's a business. Their business is essentially to raise funds. That's what the parties are all about. We need to raise funds so that we can hire more people to raise funds. It's a political Ponzi scheme on both sides of the equation. And They are more like advertising agencies, and the representatives are their salesmen. And you've got all these corporations, pharmaceutical company, military contractors, even political ideologies that are paying them to promote their product. And then the legislators will put bills forward and screw us. We don't get a decision. We don't get to decide. They're our representatives. They're working on our behalf. But they don't bring that proposal to us and say, what do you think? They make the decision for themselves. I mean, we don't live. This is what's really crazy to me. People will jump at the Second Amendment and say, oh, that's an antiquated article of the Constitution. It's antiquated. This is back when we were using muskets, and it shouldn't apply to modern technology and all this crap, which is a load of crap, period. Because free speech has developed, our thought processes, the things that we go through, we've evolved as a people. And speech is just as dangerous as a gun, because speech can cause somebody to try to assassinate the president of the United States. The messaging in the media perpetuating this idea that a person is evil incarnate, when maybe they're not perfect and they're flawed, but they're far from evil, But you're getting people so riled up with your speech that they're willing to attempt to kill another person. So how is that any less dangerous than a gun? That your speech is a finger on the trigger. And then on the other side of the equation, they have censorship regimes so that they can take away your ability to speak freely, even if it's true. They can say, oh, well, it's malinformation, which means essentially it's true, but it's inconvenient. It challenges authority. It challenges the lies that people are being told. And these politicians are nothing more than salespeople. They're like a used Bible salesman that comes to your door and says, hey, have you found Jesus? And you're like, well, I didn't know he was missing. All the while that Bible salesman's trying to hook up with your daughter in the barn. This is what these greasy politicians are all about. And then they'll go out in front of, after talking about, the rights of the people and, this, that, and the other thing. We are the party of the people. We are the party of labor and things of that nature. And, you're attacking federal jobs and workers. Then they'll go to the Department of Education and they'll attack a security guard for doing his job. And then they'll use the media to spread, misinformation themselves by saying, oh, he's a private military contractor. He's just a freaking security guard that works for the Department of Education. And that poor guy got tasked with having to go out there and stand in front of that door and take your abuse. When they knew full well you were coming, otherwise he wouldn't have been out there. So that means that somebody in that group called them to trigger this type of response. There's going to be a large protest. And they prepared themselves. Just like they did on January 6th when they put security at the Capitol. They've never had that kind of security before, but they knew that people were coming. They didn't staff it the way they probably should have to contain, the situation. But if it would have been Monday, September the 1st, any of those people could have come into the Capitol because it's open to the public. But just like at the Department of Education, they knew somebody was coming. They knew that it was going to be a problem, and they wanted to maintain some semblance of, a civil situation. They didn't want a bunch of people overrunning the department and becoming a distraction and maybe even a safety concern. So they put a single security guard out front, But they used it as an opportunity to essentially, push their agenda, which is to make people feel like the world is falling apart around us. But they're salespeople they're pitching fear now. Trump bad. That's their new sales pitch. And I just find it incredible, especially like in New York, where this is all going down, that you've got a Democrat in office. Democrats are supposed to be pro labor. And she's attacking the workers that are saying Katrina's coming. It's inevitable that the floodgates are going to open. And their lives are the ones that are in jeopardy. And they refuse to continue to work in these conditions. And their union abandons them. It just shows you that it's all a scam. It's all, those people come in like the old mob. You need protection. You need protection because this is a dangerous neighborhood. Well, I've never had any problems before. And then conveniently somebody throws a trash can through the window one night. And you're like, man, now I really do need, protection. They're creating the circumstances in which you need that protection. And in this particular case, the union isn't protecting them after charging them to do so. They're not representing them, in spite of the fact that the unions have given them their money every paycheck. And now you're going to abandon those people that you're supposed to represent and side with the judicial system, which is disgusting to me. That Kathy Hochul has this audacity to say, oh, well, there's, states' rights, and Trump wants to be the king and violate states' rights. It's like, what country do you come from? This is the United States, and you're fighting with the president of the United States. I don't care if he's a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian. You're fighting with the president of the United States, the most powerful person on the planet. He can make things get done. And if you have a problem, working with him is going to deal with the solution, or get a solution, is a much better pathway than making an enemy of him. The only hope that the people in New York have is that Donald Trump actually supports the people, regardless of what their leadership is doing. And I hope the people in New York stand up for themselves and say, look, stop making this about politics. You're extorting us, first and foremost, with these things. This is not the time to be raising tolls. It's not the time to say, either you pay us through public transit or we'll take it out of your pocket when you drive to work. One way or another, we're gonna get your money, because that's essentially what this woman is telling the people of New York. We're gonna get your money no matter what. So you can either give it to us by using public transit, which you don't trust because it's unsafe. Another situation that can be resolved. You've got all of these resources that are coming into New York from federal, funding, as well as their own state collection. And they're wasting it on things, and they're defending that waste, and they're abandoning the people of New York. They're abandoning the people of New York for criminals, and they are abandoning the people for political purposes. That's just bad leadership. I don't care who the president is, and I don't care what he grabbed or any of that crap. You can't hide behind somebody else's faults or failures when you right there yourself are creating that situation. So, this is just my ramblings, my thought process, and I apologize if I didn't stay necessarily right on track with just the prison guard situation. But that is a serious situation, and I hope that people will support those guards and speak up, and make your opinion heard. People are entitled to their own ideas, their own opinions, but we're not entitled to our own facts. Facts are facts, and the facts are that these workers feel that they are working in dangerous conditions, and that if they continue to do so, it could cause a major issue. It could cost people their lives. And that alone should be enough to shut down the warehouse. OSHA should step in, or the equivalent of that for the prison systems, and say, Governor, stop getting up in front of the cameras so that you can get your 15 minutes of fame, national notoriety, and do your job. Stop extorting the people. Start carving away on the wasteful stuff yourself. This is where Democrats have an opportunity to really stand out. because they can be the example in Oregon, Washington, California, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Delaware, all of these Democratic places, Baltimore, Illinois, all of these Democratic states could be, instead of attacking people for guns, for owning guns, attacking your citizens, law abiding people, saying that the 350 million guns in this country that have never hurt a single person should be held responsible for irrational behavior and horrible, horrific acts. Attacking those that haven't committed a crime for those who have is just irrational. Instead of paying all this money to pass legislation that violates people's rights and defending it in court year after year after year after year, imagine how much money would be spent if they didn't waste money on that and instead just secured schools. Just secure the school properly. And for those people that say, oh, we don't want our kids to live in a police state, wouldn't your kids be safer? I mean, isn't it worth it to preserve life, to ensure that your kids don't become a victim, a statistic? Because taking every gun away from every human being on the planet isn't going to cause that, because it's not going to happen. So essentially, you're just avoiding taking responsibility and doing what needs to be done. Just like with Trump saying, we need to cut government. We need to audit the government. And everybody's like, no, don't do it. No, you don't have the right to do it. You're doing it the wrong way. Well, if he's doing it the wrong way, then every single one of these blue states should be looking to cut waste, abuse, fraud, redundancies, anything that's costing the taxpayer money. Do it yourself. Do it the right way. Be the example of what you think Donald Trump should do in order to address this issue. Don't just obstruct. Don't be like Kathy Hochul, who isn't even addressing the issues of her own state, but she wants to talk smack about the president. I'm not a Trump voter. Never voted for Trump. I'm not a defender of Trump. I'm just saying that if you say he's doing something wrong, then show us how to do it right. Be the example. I don't see a single person stepping up in every single one of these blue states to be that example. And Kathy Hochul is the exact opposite. She is like the microcosm, the example of what is wrong with Democrats and leadership, what they focus on. And what they always focus on is beautification projects and spending money on garbage, bike lanes. I mean, sure, it's great to ride bikes and crap like that, but it's not essential to survival. It's not you got kids, they can't read, they can't spell, they depend on spell check, and this is creating a society that can't tell the difference between lies and the truth, and the media takes advantage of that. Politicians take advantage of that. You have a whole censorship regime running rampant across the planet, and we don't have smart enough people to see that you've got the media calling the president a Nazi and a fascist, while you have Canada, you have Germany, you have France, and the UK attacking their people for their language, for their speech, for making their voices heard. And then you have the media turning the world against the United States. That's treason, in my opinion. The media is turning the world against the United States because they are creating a caricature of a fascist dictator out of our president. The media is doing that. And sure, there's going to be a bunch of people that say, oh, it's because he is a fascist dictator. But then they say that there's a President Musk. You can't be a dictator and be a puppet at the same time. So let's be honest. Let's be real. It's political motivation. It's hatred, and it's harmful. Be the example. You said that Trump needed to go away gracefully in the 2020 election, and instead he tried to overthrow the government. He didn't do a very good job if that's what his agenda was to overthrow the government. There was an insurrection on January 6th. There was no insurrection. It was a bunch of idiots that got out of hand. And they just happened to do it at the Capitol building. If they were at Disneyland doing the same damn thing, they wouldn't be facing the same types of charges. And before anybody says, well, they were trying to to stop the certification. You can't stop the certification. The certification is going to get done. He was already elected president. The rest of it was all essentially, pageantry, ceremony. Them going into the building or even burning the Capitol building down would not have prevented the president from taking power. Plain and simple. Was it the right thing to do? No. But nobody can honestly look at it from an objective point of view and say that those people were charged in the same way they would be if they were somewhere else and there was no politics involved in the situation. We had riots here in Portland, the police station, the Justice Building. Nobody faced, insurrection charges. And you might say, yeah, but they weren't trying to stop the certification of the vote. Well, first and foremost, you have to prove that. Hillary Clinton, they let her off the hook because they said they couldn't prove intent, that she intended to do the things that she did, which is kind of crazy. You can't prove that a person intended to break the law? I didn't know that was a prerequisite. Ignorance of the law doesn't just immediately set you loose on the streets. They couldn't prove intent there, but they could prove intent on J6, that they intended to go in and stop the certification, rather than to protest that they felt that the election was stolen or whatever the case may be. That's a whole nother ball of worms or wax or whatever. Anyway, I've been on here quite a while and kind of rambled away. I don't know how this will be received, but give me your feedback.